Yo, 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 yo. So, welcome to this very special podcast. We've created a matrix of all these incredible podcasts today and live streams today. And right now, I have Ron created a matrix of all these incredible podcasts. Now, anybody that's playing in the background, pause that. There you go. And so, yeah, this is first, I should say, welcome to Beat People Podcast, episode 66, which is also the kickoff of the inaugural Synth Society Summit, annual first number one. So it's good to be here with everybody. And actually, this is a sort of special thing. D Still and Ken may be joining here shortly, so don't be surprised if they pop in on us. But I want to say a couple things. First, welcome for the first time to Ron of Sleepy Circuits.
Thank you.
Hey, Ron.
Thanks for having me.
Ron. Yeah, we're going to talk about his modules and stuff. And then I got, obviously, Travarsi, and I got Sean, and they're on that side. Yo, what's going on? And then I don't know how many of you all remember the very first episode, and probably for the first year there, Upright was a regular panel member on the Beat People podcast. It's good to have you back, bro.
Yo, thanks. Yeah, good to be back. Good to be back for sure.
Yeah, no doubt. And we got Ken, and we all know who Ken is. Ken Flux Pierce. Welcome back to the show, my man.
I'm doing finger points today.
Yeah, there we go.
So, yeah, man, this is going to be like a fun sort of weekend of a lot of cool stuff. Let me just kind of prime people. What we decided to do with the SoCal Synth Society, Travarsi, I said, yo, Travarsi, we were all planning on going to Super Booth, and we're not because the world is upside down right now. And so this is our little way of right-siding the world back up, giving everybody a little something for all the synth nerds and beat nerds and, music tech folks out there that, we're all kind of in isolation, quarantine, or safer at home kind of stuff. I don't want to get too much into that, but I do want to just say that this is our way of kind of giving back to the community and kind of sharing our platform with everybody to kind of know what's up and see what's going on. And one, there's a lot of synth societies across the world, and so we wanted to get together with everybody and just talk about a lot of stuff, tons of stuff. This is basically a virtual synth conference. And so with the Beat People Podcast 66 is the kickoff of that, and so there's a lot more stuff to come this weekend, and hope you all join in and enjoy the fun. And so with that, I'm just going to start the show then. So Ken, what you eating on over there, man? We want some if you didn't bring none for the whole class.
Yeah.
I want to tell you something that I learned today.
Okay.
Apparently, you're not supposed to eat until you're full every time you eat. And I'm struggling.
Oh, yeah. No, you're not supposed to burst your stomach with food, man. Come on.
I'm struggling with this concept. And apparently, there's this thing called dieting that my wife wants me to do with her, and it's all bad. So I'm not actually eating anything.
Oh, I shouldn't have called that out. I get it. I won't. Never mind that. No doubt.
Nothing is happening. You saw nothing.
It's all an illusion.
Yeah, it's an illusion. You didn't see anything. Can I just call out, though, Bryce, the Eurorack and the studio setup is looking good back there, man.
Yo, man, appreciate it. Yeah, it's been a long time coming. So, but I'm back and enjoying myself, having a good time.
Yeah, no doubt. Yeah. No doubt. And Shonda and Sean, you guys over there, y'all ready for this weekend?
Yes, we are.
Ready for it.
Yep.
Dope. It's going to be a lot of good stuff, and we got a lot of good things and people to talk to. And jumping back up to Ron from Sleepy Circuits, welcome to the show again. And tell us a little bit about, I'm going to share the screen because I want to show people your new module, and maybe you could tell us a little bit about how you came to a point where you wanted to design modules and the sort of inception of Sleepy Circuits and what you're working on.
Yeah, so I've been working on Sleepy Circuits for, it's been probably like almost 2 years now. It's been kind of a side thing, and more recently, like now closer to release, I'm trying to make it like the main thing that I'm doing. Overall, it's just, I'm like very passionate about audiovisual art and like combining the two. It's something that's always inspired me the most when I would go out to events and see things. It's like really like that feeling of like things syncing up and like really coming together. Like that feeling really, really excites me when I see a show, you know, like just that connection. And it really started, you know, I'm a computer scientist by like schooling, so I'm a programmer. And I wanted to experiment with video card code and what it's like. So on more the nerdy side, you know, like I wanted to experiment with like programming specifically for video cards. And like I realized that that would allow me to actually create something in like really small and really powerful, because I was definitely not at a point in my life back when I was in college to be able to afford like a multi-$1,000 video synth. And so, you know, like I'm just the kind of guy who's going to be like, I'm gonna make my own, you know. So
Yeah.
like, yeah, I wanted my video card under voltage control essentially. So it's like that's what I wanted to do, and it's been a long time coming, and now it's really coming together, and it, you know, it feels good. It feels good to be able to actually like give these to people. It's like people get it now. It's great.
Yeah. So so your company is Sleepy Circus. Is that more like a one-man operation, or you collaborate and work with other folks, or how's that work out?
So yeah, Sleepy Circuits. I'm doing, of course, my own modules. I also do some modules for right now primarily one client. So I do some stuff on contract to like stay afloat. But I'm hoping to make it mostly my own modules in the future. It's mostly me, but I also contract out certain little things. But for the most part, like it's just all me right now. It's kind of a strange thing, and it's always.
And that's good. I mean, but this is the in the Eurorack market and sort of this boutique sense, sort of, you know, culture that we're in. That's kind of typical. So I mean, I admire it. I commend you for it, because it takes a lot of work to get these things done, quite frankly. So, and your module is called the Hypno. It's a voltage controlled digital video system. Tell us a little bit about that for the ones of us that, you know, I can't say that I'm super familiar with. I do know that there are Eurorack modules and entire video systems that can be synced up with audio, and there's a visual display. But tell us a little more about that idea behind this video system sort of deal.
Man, can I jump in here real quick and say that module looks dope? It looks
Thank you.
It's a pretty module, isn't it?
Yeah, it looks really dope.
Yeah. Thank you. I appreciate that. Yeah, that's great. Yeah, so there's a couple of things, I guess, just like you're asking kind of like the landscape and like what's out there. So LZX, if you guys are familiar with LZX, has been doing like video synthesis for a while. They're primarily in the analog domain. That's where you kind of send waves at your TV and see what comes out on their like old school like CRT tubes. The digital video synthesis is mostly software and things like this, so things in the computer. At the time where I started this project, there was actually very, very few things where it's like a digital video system that's actually within a piece of hardware. So the issue, I mean, I love video synths. I really like, I think it's like a different world really, like with analog and digital, because you kind of just get different results. But it's just the realities of developing this stuff in the analog realm is that the hardware becomes very expensive. So like really my Hypno was like a product and just a cool object that I want Hypno to be something that somebody looking at video synthesis can look at and be like, all right, I can play shows with that. Like, or all right, like this is all I need to be able to like improvise some visuals to some music that my friend is playing or my own band, because it's a little difficult. Like the barrier, the informational barrier to entry into doing video art is kind of a lot. Like there's like capture cards, video cards, like or analog modules for video actually, like oftentimes, well, not only is it a different voltage range, it's like for analog video, it's 0 to 1 volt or yeah, it's 0 to 1 volt. It's just only 1 volt voltage range, as opposed to the usual -5 to 5 volt in Eurorack. It's also like the power requirements are way more stringent, because every time you have like a little some noise coming in, you get a glitch on the screen. So you have to like make sure all your power supplies are very clean. So you actually have to end up paying more for power supplies. So the nice thing about doing like kind of digital is like I can kind of go past that, like, and use all those modern like digital techniques and all these little, phone microprocessors that are becoming cheaper and cheaper, and just, have this little thing that I can just plug in with USB and just like get going.
And that's what I feel like is the key to the module that you have. One, it's less expensive than other modules that I've seen. It's one of the more handsome modules of all modules. and it's not a huge system. We know somebody that got into video synthesis and left other synthesis alone totally.
Oh, Winston.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, Winston. Winston, we chat a lot.
Yeah, Winston's a good friend of mine, and he kind of he went off the deep end, as it were, as far as just he went full hardcore nerd on it, and just he's gone. He's gone.
He's gone.
Well, Ron, I remember when I first met you and I was playing Triptronic Research, and it was like, you're like, let me just pull this into your clock for the visual. I'm like, okay. Yeah. And then I see you come over with this little box that you had your Hypno in, and I was like, you're doing all that with that? And then like I was like, I have to have that, like, because it is like, when I was at NobCon and I saw that table full of amazing gear where people were doing all these visuals and like the setups, there were like thousands and thousands of dollars, and it's like, on top of the rabbit hole of being a Eurorack fanatic for just audio, I was like, I can't even imagine going in that direction, like you said, your friend Winston. But this, having something like this where I could just put next to another module in my case, I was like, that's when I hit you up. I was like, I have to have this thing.
Wow, that's dope. That's dope, Shonda. So let me ask you this. So like, as a layman, like somebody that has no idea how any of this works, so if you buy your module, how would that interface to just basically add video to what I'm doing with my modular?
So the great thing about Hypno is you literally just drop it in and it's all the same voltage ranges as like the rest of your modular system. So all of these, if you see like CV jacks, will work just fine. So these all, if you see the lines, connect them. These all control the knobs like right on the panel. So when you move the knobs, you can just throw in a voltage. So a common question that I get is like, is it audio reactive? Can I just plug audio into it? Which ends up being kind of more like a complicated question, because like you kind of really get to choose how audio reactive it is. Because it's like one of the things that excited me. Well, yeah, I really like, you really can just drop this into your rack and you become an AV system. And basically the same CVs that you have informing your composition can now inform your visuals as well, which is very powerful.
That's dope.
Because it's like you split something and like already you have like a story that you're telling that's aligning with the visuals. So it can be audio reactive on like the compositional level, as well as just the regular like, oh, I'm plugging audio into this. And you can plug in audio into this. But actually, most of the time I like to put like an envelope follower on it, or like just smooth out the voltages, because it's a little too fast for my taste. But you know, I don't know, maybe some glitchy people would like it.
So what'd you do at the SoCal Synth NAMM show? Because I'm gonna share a little video of it's when I was performing. Obviously, Bryce was filming, and you had and Sean was doing audio. Like, this is the whole. Okay, this is dope. This is like a reunion. Kim was hosting, and you were doing the video, and I was performing, and
Sean was on the boards.
Then Travarsy performed and was hosting and doing just about everything.
And don't forget we had Ken there talking shit, doing some MCing.
There you go.
That's
Yep.
right. That was dope. That was dope.
And then I see in the chat we have all the rest of the crew in the chat. So
yeah, I love that. So here's the thing. I remember from that night when we were all performing, you asked for a clock from our rig so that you can sync up the Hypno, right? And I'm gonna share a little video right now. Let me fast forward to a point because all the screens in the background here are all like the Hypno is providing that, and all I provided him was a clock from. I'm gonna have to jump around here a little bit.
There you go. Yep.
A little bit. But yeah, you just had a clock. Talk about that a little bit. Like, is that all you really need? I heard you talk about an envelope follower.
There you go. Yep.
Yeah, there you go. You can see a little bit of it. There was like screens on the wall all around. And the dope thing about it is that it was in perfect time with the music. People were asking me about that.
You can see people nodding to it.
That was so dope. That was dope. That was dope.
Thanks. Yeah, so like I grab a clock, just one, and then I have like my Batumi or like stages, like multiplying and dividing. I find that like I'm not just taking a lot of clocks from people just because I don't want like that setup time to be like too hectic. It's already like a hectic time for everyone, and like me sneaking in, usually people are like, "Oh, what are you doing here?" Like handing them a wire. So like I just plug in one clock and then I like multiply it and divide it kind of based on what I want to do. Sometimes if I want to get extra fancy, I do a clock and the main like audio out so that I can like process it and extract the things that I want in my like I usually do like a 42 HP rack with like a few little extra things that I can like change on the fly. But yeah, it's just that. And Hypno has a lot of internal modulation as well. So
I have a question about the modulation stuff with that. So I know a lot of video synthesis stuff works well with like really like above audio range frequencies. So what's the modulation range on this? Does this keep it more in the audio domain and lower, or is it up into the megahertz range, or what?
So the reason analog video synths generally require really, really fast modulation is because what it does is it kind of like scans across the screen really fast. So in order to get like a line on the screen, you basically need to have like a sine wave repeating on every single line of the screen. If you can imagine that, if you have like 640 by 480, like that's like 480 lines. So like that is a really fast signal. So for Hypno, it actually generates the visual all at once. So you don't need extra actually it's beneficial to have extra slow modulations in my opinion for stuff like this. And that's the reason I put the internal modulations in, because I can make those extra slow modulations actually even smoother than like any type of hardware input that I could get, because
the ADC would step
for the conversion. So. Yeah, exactly. So like that's why the internal modulation was like really good for like really slow movements.
And are you able to like so obviously because it's digital and you have these kind of almost presets in it, right? As far as how you're doing things, are you able to rewrite and do your own in there and update it and that sort of thing?
In terms of the presets, there's no like computer interface for it yet, but you can do presets. So on the interface, if you see my Hypno right now, what you're seeing up there is actually a preset. If you hit two of the buttons and you hold them and you hit the third button, you can actually recall a preset. So I can go back to, see, I'm holding the two bottom ones and then hitting the top one. See, I'm kind of back to the other one. It's going kind of fast though, so maybe I could like slow it down. There you go. So there is kind of like a little preset in here. And in order to save a preset, you can kind of, okay, so I can like change this one up. Let's say I have like a different color, and then I can hold two buttons and then hold the third one, and then you see a little animation play. Turns green. That means it's saved. That means when I go to, I'll recall another preset, and then now I can go back to that slot. So the third button you hit is the slot you're either saving or recalling. So there's kind of 3 presets, one for every button.
Okay.
Yeah.
So like 3 positions on every button. Nice.
Yeah. I can go over the interface if you would like. As well.
That'd be a great idea.
Actually, do that.
Yeah. So this is the Hypno. Let me just go to like, I have up one of my presets is just a basic patch right now. So this is the Hypno. It's got 2 sides. It's got kind of A and B. I call those shape A and B. So you can see 2 lines on screen. You see it's kind of green and blue. Here, let me turn this down because the camera's weird. The colors might be a little weird, by the way, just because it's like going through another camera. But you got 2 shapes, and you've got the sliders are the frequencies of those shapes. So if I turn one down, it's just going to disappear completely. So on the left, I have the frequency, I have rotation for that shape, and then I have like the polarization for that shape. So it makes it more circular. And then this button right here is, if you hit it, you have a bunch of different shapes that you could play with. So this is the same as the case on the other side. So I can bring in the other sort of oscillator or shape, also rotation, polarization, and then you could change the shape.
Man, that's dope.
About looked like it dropped out for a sec. Okay, so yeah, you have these 2 shapes, and the controls in the middle are the kind of master controls for the Hypno. So these control the whole frame. The bottom one is a hue offset. So
Oh man, did we lose him?
Yeah, it looks like we did.
I feel like
hold
the
on.
video synthesis destroyed his beat. He
Hey, but
modulated himself
is
out of
really
life.
good. Oh, okay, there we go. There we go.
I dropped out. Hello, sorry.
Okay, there you are.
I have no idea what happened there. It just tells me something went wrong, and like,
And just kicked you out.
yeah, no, literally, I just hit refresh and it was just working again. It's very strange.
All good.
Anyway, that knob is the root hue knob. It'll change both of the colors at the same time, so it instantly changes the like master hue, and then the two colors, there's like offsets for that hue. And I could show you later how to dial in actually a palette and then kind of move it around with this knob. And the center one is the master gain. So this knob, you can either do positive gain or negative gain. If you see like this is positive, and then the other one is kind of like the flip side of that shape.
Yep.
And so you can see how it kind of starts to bloom a little bit. That's because it starts feeding back into the frame when you go past a quarter way on this knob in either direction. So there's a whole feedback system in here as well, which is a very common technique in analog synthesis. And this knob, this button in the middle, there's actually a few feedback modes here that are all very different. And then there's a lot more UI that's a little more complicated, because when you hold one of these buttons, you actually go into an alternate page of controls and then these sides, if you hold it, it kind of turns white, and you have a page of controls that control like the internal modulation. So here, I'll just show it. These are they represent pages for shape A and shape B. So they're further expansions of what you could do with those shapes. All the adjacent stuff is modulation. So the bottom slider, if you can see it, I can move it up and I can make a shape scroll, for example. So those are the internal modulations. So in the center, it's actually off, and then in either you can make it scroll in either direction. It's kind of strange to demo it like this. Same for like the rotation. So basically what that knob would normally do, if you hold the button and turn it on the adjacent side, it'll start doing modulations to it. Same as the case for the other shape, I can make the other shape scroll as well. And then the opposite knobs from the are actually like these two become the fractaling controls. So if you hold this button, you see it turns white, and you turn this is the like fractal or mirror amount. So you can add here. This will be more obvious. Whoa, it's going real fast. Slow down there, buddy. Okay. Okay. So you can control like how many times it mirrors the shape into like insane fractals. And then there's a rotation for the axis of those fractals. And you can do that with any of the shapes. So there's a lot in there. And with both shapes, you can do it individually per shape. The center controls become the hue and saturation offset for that shape. So if you have two colors, let's see, you can offset one of the colors, so you can kind of dial in a palette that you like, and then here, it's a little weird with the screen. You see now both of them are kind of greenish, and then once you have a palette dialed in that you like, you can actually don't hold the button anymore, hit the hue knob, and it'll change the master hue, so it'll offset that whole palette across. So you dial in a relationship, and then this one can kind of give you like a mood change of that palette. So it can also like be completely desaturated in black and white as well. So that's kind of how you go deeper into the colors. All of that combined with the fact that you could also patch the shapes into each other by holding one button. And if you could see, there's like a green LED and then a red LED. Green means something is patched into that part of the system. Red means that it's not patched into that part of the system. The two buttons represent the two oscillators. So here, let me go back to like a simple patch so I could show this. So you see you have two lines right now. If I patch shape A into shape B, I'm going to hold this button right here and then press this. It's going to turn green. You can see how I'm getting like a new shape here because it's one of the sine waves is feeding into the other sine wave. So now I have this more complex shape. And the slider under that button then becomes the magnitude of that kind of patch point. So in the center, it's actually like almost like 0. And then you can do a positive or negative. So you kind of have like this attenuverter of the modulation, to use the kind of Eurorack jargon.
That's dope. It's kind of like when you throw an LFO on an audio signal, and you can make it stronger and have a larger LFO wave, or just kind of dial it in just a bit to the signal. So you're kind of doing that, but visually with
exactly. Exactly. So that combined with the fractaling, and there's actually a whole nother page of like the center page is kind of like the feedback control. I could show that as well. So you can see like just with the shapes, you already have like a lot of possibility space in terms of what kind of shapes you can get out of these things. Because you have the 5 shapes, you have the fractaling controls, you have the modulations, you have like patching. You can, so, and then the other patch here, you can actually take an oscillator out of the frame, which seems odd, but is actually a very requested feature that I got, because sometimes you just want one of the oscillators to just be like a modulation oscillator for the other one. So as you can see, it remains the modulation oscillator, but it's not actually in the frame. So if you want to do just one complex shape and just have like underlying oscillator that you can't see, you can do that too. So I can put that back into the frame. The center button is when you hold it, you actually get deeper into the feedback controls. So if I hold this center button, it's a little difficult while I'm holding it up. You can see now it's like feeding back. It's kind of leaving trails. Let me see if I can patch something in that's like very obvious here. Okay. So you see how it kind of leaves a trail behind it? So if I hold the center button, like all of these controls kind of become the controls for how the feedback frame works. So if I hold this and use the center button, this is actually the zoom. So you could see how the feedback can go like inward, you're kind of like flying into it, or like you're like flying the other way.
That's dope.
Oh, that's dope.
So you get some pretty sweet like 3D effects out of that.
Yeah, I have a quick question about.
Please.
So obviously everything is generated within the module, right? All the visuals. I was kind of thinking, just like, how difficult would it be to implement like outside video, like maybe just raw like MPEG video, and add that in and manipulate
have it mapped
that
onto it or whatever.
Yeah, like SD card or something. How difficult would it be to add like a MPEG video?
Yeah, it's not impossible. Let's just say I'm working on it. It's like for this product, it was not within the scope of like I wanted to get something out there where people would be like, all right, I get it. Like synthesis was really a little bit more straightforward for this product, but let's just say it's like the number 1 or 2 question that I get.
Gotcha.
So it's definitely something to do that specifically is coming.
Gotcha.
Because
Gotcha.
it's gonna, if I'm gonna make something like that, I would not make it in this interface. Like
this is
I would
deceptively deep as it is. I mean, like you're showing all these alternate modes and all. The only thing about that concerns me, which it's a double-edged sword, is of course remembering all these shift functions, basically.
Yeah.
But it's crazy how deep it goes. I wasn't expecting it to be that deep just by looking at the front panel.
Yeah, it's. I mean, I tried to lay it out logically. I mean, people say that once you start working with it, it's not too bad. I mean, I guess that depends on the person, though, so that's not something that I can claim. I hope to make it as easy as possible. I'm going to be releasing like these little like 1 minute quick videos like for Instagram over the like next week. So that should be a nice reference. I'm also, and I mean, there's a whole manual. There's a quick start guide.
By the way.
Oh, that's actually my. Oh yeah, it is my Instagram. Okay, good.
Yeah. I changed it.
I do have a quick question about the interfacing. So, obviously we talked about how it has Eurorack interfacing and audio inputs and that sort of thing that you can do to it.
Yeah.
But I also noticed I was looking at the website and it says that you can interface with MIDI as well.
Yes.
Can you talk a little bit about how the MIDI interfacing works with it?
Yeah, I don't have it set up to do MIDI right now, but if you see this USB on the front, that USB port is very powerful. You can actually, if you get one of these cheap converters online, I don't want to sell them because it's like, what, you know, I don't want to like have to upcharge on that. That's kind of silly. You know, you plug in one of these, and usually then now I have like a standard USB-A port. So I use this a lot with my OPZ channel 16. There's a little chart on the manual of like what everything does. So if you're like, Ron, you put too many button combos into this interface, like, you know, you can just attach some sliders into it and just map out the sliders to whatever you want.
Yeah.
And it's awesome. So if you have an Electron or an OPZ, something like that, where it's like you have the sequencer going for music, and you can also have that same sequencer.
Map something like this to it.
Oh yeah, absolutely. You could like take that thing and map like channel 16 to like the numbers, or it's just a little chart, and you can just map your favorite functions if you want. And yeah, it's great because it's then when you have like a whole sequencer going, it's like you can change patterns, and then like your whole visual, like you can really dial it in, like, and change like, okay, I'm gonna have it like this very specific visual for this part of the track, and like you can pre-program like there's like really intense AV things. I haven't gotten around to like creating the whole performance like that, but it's like it's a really cool way to work.
Because especially now you have so many things that you could do presets across CV and across MIDI, and you could literally launch a preset for a different song or different section of the song, and then go back if you wanted to with like that kind of MIDI capability. It's crazy. It's really dope.
Yeah, with MIDI, it's actually even a little bit easier than CV because it's like I'm not limited to how much space there is on the physical panel. You know, you can just MIDI and whatever.
That's pretty dope.
Yeah.
So in my ignorance, I just want to address this real quick. Can we talk about how he's holding a single module in one hand in a case? Like, can we? Is there
actually, I do want to talk about the case.
So the case is a little add-on that I kind of came up with. Well, first of all, for myself, you know, because I'll pick up another module, so it's a little easier to show. The side has an HDMI and a micro USB port. So this is another USB port. So it can get power from this USB port, this micro USB, or the side micro USB. So you don't need a Eurorack power supply to use this. So this kind of works standalone just fine. And it's, you know, it's a nice compact little guy. You know, I just kind of.
Did you 3D print the case, or that's something that's included with it?
So there's actually like a little drop down. It's a 3D printed case. I'm just kind of making them. Yeah, there you go. You got the graphic up. So it's a little add-on that I'm doing. I'm just kind of producing them in-house. I have a 3D printer actually behind this TV. So I'm kind of just like, I'm making them. And I mean, I include the cable and the power bricks. So you know, I wanted everybody to be able
That's
to use
brilliant.
it.
I think that's really dope. Because what
that's
you're getting
super
here is you're getting something that's either standalone or something you could throw in your case. And either way, I could see it being convenient. The only thing I would think is if you threw it in your case, you lose the HDMI side and the USB side. But somebody in the comments just mentioned that they have it in their case that they just drilled a little hole perfect for the HDMI inside of it.
Yeah, you can do that. I know that's not an elegant solution. I'm actually trying to figure out how to like expand it. It's just that I like the panel is a little too small to put a giant HDMI on the front. So
I don't mind that. I mean,
the
fact that you provide a case that makes it easy to have to kind of use that as a standalone unit. I mean, it's no bigger than a guitar pedal.
And it's light. You know,
it's very light.
It's plastic on the back, so but the composite jack is on the front, so there is a video input out on the front as well.
Okay, so there you go.
It's just I couldn't fit all of the video outputs on the front. Oh, another thing that the USB port is great for. So not only does it do, it's like a host, it's also a device, which means that you can actually plug this in directly to your computer and it will stream video to your computer. I actually have a tutorial up online now. So something like OBS Studio, which is a free piece of software, you can just hit record on it, which is awesome because it's like, if you know anything about like analog video stuff, it's like you have to get a capture card, and then, you know, most of those capture cards are kind of crap. You know, I actually have a few capture cards that I don't use because I don't like I don't like the way they look, because, you know, it's and they're all like super expensive. So you can actually like plug this into your computer and just record, and like I do, you know, post every day, post a visual every day on my account.
Amazing.
I know you can do that with it. That is dope.
Yeah, I wanted to share when we were advancing the details for the SoCal NAMM party, and I was told that you were doing visuals, and you were like, "Oh, I need an HDMI cable." I thought you were going to show up like we were advancing all the details. I was like, "All right, he needs a large space to set up all his like a laptop and like, you know, whatever he's going to need," and then you show up with this. You know? Oh man, that's, you know, so even for like, you know, engineers in front of house people or anybody at the club, like if you just have, like, yo, I got to do, you know, it's a really cool way to do visuals. It's amazing.
Dope. And I think that's a good point to make, Sean, because, you know, and I even told you, Ron, when I saw that, I was like, yo, when I think of video synthesis, I think these huge systems and a Eurorack the size of your Eurorack, you know what I mean? And then spending triple the amount of money on one thing, and it seems like, and then there's all these things. I felt like that there's stuff to learn and figure out this whole new thing. After we've all kind of got on this journey of Eurorack, I'm like, oh, another thing to learn. And more stuff to haul to a show. But then to see this, that makes it totally different. I mean, and the amount of power just to take an output and throw it into whatever system. And I'm gonna tell you, that room that we were in at NAMM, there were 50-inch screens around the entire circumference.
No joke.
That's a pretty sweet setup.
It was incredible, right? And this little module. Sports bar. It was just kind of dope to see that, all that power coming from the palm of your hand with this little device.
With the design, it was a bit of a balancing act, because it's like I want to be able to give people something that's like compact and powerful enough that people feel like really confident that they can go deep enough that they can play a whole show. But you know, I also don't want to make it too complicated because it is meant for new users. So like, this is what I landed on. I hope it's not too complicated. I don't know. I mean, either way, it's like I'm trying to work on like getting all the info out there. Oh, I actually just posted up, like I have a forum now. So if people have questions, I encourage people to go ask questions about that, or just anything like AV. I know it's kind of a weird space, like a lot of questions. You know, I thought maybe like recently there's been a lot of like talk about webcams, of course, with all this like virus business. So like, just like if I can help in any way people like get started or just like figure stuff out, whether it is related to Hypno or not, you know, I'm happy to do it. I just kind of want to build a community and more information around it, because it's something that I love and I want people to be able to participate in.
Dope. Well, yeah, I can really appreciate what you've done, man. And I mean, I feel like you've taken this complicated beast of video synthesis and distilled it down into something that's easy to deal with. But it's like Ken said, it's a deceptively complex module with a simple interface. So I feel like what the magic in that is, it's simplified so you could get into it, but you can make it as complex so you could dig in as deep as you want.
Yeah,
you know
sure.
what I mean?
Yeah. At that show, I don't know if you remember, there was just the guy who was like, "Can I play?" I'm like, "Go for it!" and he was just like moving all the knobs to the beat and like having an awesome time, and it looked great. And like he was doing stuff that I probably wouldn't have.
So that brings me to kind of a question. I know earlier you mentioned slower modulation works kind of better, like if it's kind of like maybe on autopilot. So if you were to have, ideally, would it be best to have somebody kind of manipulating Hypno and you on your Eurorack, or just like maybe send just a slow modulation signal to Hypno? Like ideally, how do you view that whole situation?
I mean, of course, the way you patch it is up to you, but the way I have done it, like I of course make visuals for other people all the time. If I'm making visuals for a bunch of other performers, I just give them probably maximum I would give them is a clock and a thing, and then process it in some system, in some modulation thing to like make it just what I want for the visual that I'm doing at the time. If I'm doing like an AV system, I pop Hypno in there, and like I said before, I'll split out some of the like fundamental LFOs and shapes that are creating my compositions and my sounds, and also patch them into Hypno, so that if I'm changing a piece of the audio system, I also changing the visuals at the same time. And it's like, because it can be kind of difficult to split your attention between the visuals and the audio. I'm not very good at it yet, but I'm getting there, just mostly because I wasn't really able to do it, because I usually play just like one row of Eurorack. And now it's like great because I literally can just pop this thing in and have an AV system. Before I could like not do that at all. Or it's like, you know, I didn't want to bring a whole nother case, not that I even have a case of like LZX, but it's a different flavor. So I mean, it's a complicated question, just because like you could patch it in so many ways and get creative with it. You
probably get to a point where you kind of have your preference of patching and what works. So you probably have to kind of play around with it a little bit. Huh? That's interesting.
I guess a few good starting points probably is like these two on the ends are trigger inputs for the shapes, so they will cycle through the shapes. That's a really good way to really quickly get into some nice, like satisfying rhythmic changes, because to the beat you could boom, 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 and it's just, you know, changing the shape every single time. So that's an easy way to get into it. And then, I mean, literally any of these patch points will do something for you. If it's any way related to the audio that you're playing, it's going to look good. Plus, you kind of get the benefit of the doubt with visuals, because a lot of times people will just associate the visuals to the audio anyway. Yeah.
Well, so you know, mistakes are probably more forgiven in visual than they would be if there's a off-key oscillator or out-of-tune oscillator, right?
Well, I think it might get less forgiving with, I think definitely right now it is, because I don't think people see this type of thing very often. Just cause, like things that are like actually synced, like on that level, on like this really like primordial level of like synthesis. Like I mean, I don't see that very often. Which is why I made this. I want to be able to see it more often.
So that's another question I have for you, Ron, because I feel like the market is kind of just wide open for this stuff. And I only saw a couple. One, your product is unique, and for all the reasons that I've said, it's not this huge system. It's a self-contained sort of thing that you could throw in your rack or have its own case. But then you got Critter and Guitari's new thing. Somebody was asking about that.
Oh yeah,
And then you also have the Op-Z. Beyond that, I don't know that there's a lot of that stuff out there that's kind of easy to grasp, get your hands on, and implement.
Yeah,
What do you think about the other
OPZ
stuff
is-
like that? OPZ.
I have an OPZ, and it's quite complicated to get into because it's like it uses Unity, which is a game engine. So you have to like know a whole game engine in order to create visuals for it.
Yeah.
So it's almost like I was like, oh, that's too hard, you know. Like if you have an OPZ, like this is a great way because that's why it's on channel 16. Actually, that's like my OG way of like using it. It's like you literally plug an OPZ, and that video channel becomes your hypno modulations. So yeah, it's great. So yeah, people are mentioning other things. So yeah, there's also things like structure. The structure is really cool because it's kind of like it lets you do some of this stuff, but like I really think it's more for like programmers and coders and people looking into coding their own shaders, which is like a whole world of complexity, which is awesome, but it's not exactly who I was like going for with this stuff. I really wanted that power of shaders that you get with something like structure, but like an interface that just feels like, okay, this is like the instrument and there's like a possibility space that I'm exploring, you know, just like it's like DAW versus synth module. It's like you have a specific possibility space that you know and is satisfying to play.
You know what this reminds me of? I started out making beats on a PlayStation, right? There was a game called Music Generator. Right?
Oh, cool.
And it had a mode where you could move over to visuals, and they looked a lot like this. So like you could create a beat or whatever, and then like I don't know if you press like a right trigger or whatever, and then it would go into like something like this where it would actually like, you know, generate visuals, you know, to what you made. So this reminds me a lot of that.
Yeah, kind of like a visualizer that with like really detailed control.
yeah, exactly. Yeah, obviously yours is more, way more detailed, but yeah.
So yeah, I guess what other products are there? Yeah, structure is cool. It's more expensive. It's probably for more of a niche use case. The new Critter and Guitar thing is in some ways, I guess, similar to what I'm doing. I think it's different. I'm not personally, I was never totally happy with, they have their own aesthetic going. So I guess if people like that sort of thing, they can go for that. And that's great. For me personally, I was looking to create a slightly different aesthetic. I was like this, like, I don't know. I kind of see it as kind of like more like overly computer graphics. I also wanted more like 3D-esque things in there. None of this, by the way, is actually 3D. It's like faux 3D because it just feeds back shapes and stuff and makes stuff look like more 3D. I can also like turn it, you know? Yeah. So yeah, there's a few things out there. It's becoming more of a thing. I hope it becomes more of a thing. I mean, it's great. It's a great time. It's not like, you know, the great thing about stuff like Eurorack, it's like if you have other people doing it, people are just more interested in like your stuff. So
yeah, I mean, that's exactly why I brought it up, because I think, you know, the market is always a little better for all parties when there's other things out there in the market. And what I think is dope is that OPZ has its own thing. And like you said, you named the differences, and the Critter and Guitar thing is it's sort of its own thing. And then you've made something that's accessible to those that may be more prone to Eurorack and stuff like that. So
yeah,
I kind of think they all kind of, that it's like a little market brewing, and I love that. I think that's what's dope about it.
Yeah.
So, and actually we are down to like 5 minutes, and I think we should probably close out unless anybody has anything in closing they want to say.
Well, I do want to say one thing.
Yeah.
I do now, because I just sent out the pre-orders. I do now have a few of these in stock if anybody wants one. It's a limited amount still. I'm slowly rolling them out, especially with like the world situation. It's been a little slow to produce, but there are a few in stock. So go buy one. Help me make more of these things.
And where can they find you at? They can go to
sleepycircuits.com. Yeah.
All right, cool. And before we get out of
price point right now, just out of curiosity,
So it's 600 just for the module, and it's an added 20 for like the standalone pack, which gets you the case, the wire, the power brick, so the accessories you will need to be able to run it standalone.
Gotcha. Yep.
And as we prepare to get out of here and jump to the next feed, like I said, this is the Synth Society Summit weekend. And so we would like you to go to the Southern California Synth Society YouTube page. You could just type that into the search, SoCal Synth Society, and then you'll see what's going live and what's coming up next. And be sure to join all of the feeds throughout the rest of the weekend. Next up is Ali Modular doing a patch from scratch. So if you know Ali Modular, brother Ali, he gets on and he does mod bap, modular synthesis with hip hop, and kind of blends it all. So actually, I'm not even sure if it's scratch or if it's some stuff that he's prepared and then he's going to kind of construct it all. But yeah, hop over to that feed and I'll see you over there. And yo, Ron, thanks for coming on, man. It's been a blast. I'm glad we finally got a chance to get you on. We've been talking about it for a while. And so
thanks for having me.
People, thanks for joining the feed. See y'all on the next ones.
Yep.
Yeah.
Peace out, everybody.
Yeah.
All right.
Later.
Oh, before we go, the next Beat People podcast, episode 67, is going to be Wednesday night at 6, and that's going to be the classic MPC show. So it's going to be, we're going to have Ricky Tinez on there, Flux will be there, D Still will be there, and we'll be talking about classic MPCs. What is the
all
appeal?
things MPC?
All things MPC. And we're going to talk about why it's still so appealing and why it's so dope. But for now, jump over to the SoCal Synth Society page and see what the next feed is. All right. Peace, y'all.
Peace out, guys.
See you in a minute,
Thank
guys.
you.